The first phone call came at exactly 2:17 in the morning. My wife's phone vibrated on the bedside table. She glanced at the screen, quickly silenced it, and whispered, "It's nothing, just a wrong number." I wanted to believe her, but that was the beginning of the worst chapter of my life. My name is Daniel. For 12 years, I believed I had the perfect family. My wife Sarah and I had built a comfortable life together. We had a beautiful daughter, a cozy home, and what everyone called a happy marriage. At least that's what everyone saw. Then the late-night phone call started. At first, it was only once every few days. The phone would ring after midnight, Sarah would leave the bedroom, and she'd return 10 or 15 minutes later with a nervous smile. "Work emergency," she'd say. It sounded believable. She managed accounts for a growing company, and deadlines happened. But something didn't feel right. Soon the calls became more frequent, every single night, sometimes twice. She started putting a password on her phone. She carried it everywhere, even to the kitchen and the bathroom. One evening, while we were eating dinner, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. Her face turned pale. Without saying a word, she stood up and walked outside to answer it. Our daughter looked at me. "Daddy, why does Mommy always look scared when that person calls?" I didn't have an answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I checked our phone bill online. The same number appeared over and over again. No name, no location, just a number. I copied it into my notebook. Later that afternoon, I dialed it. The call connected, but nobody spoke. I heard slow breathing. Then, click. The line went dead. A chill ran through my body. When Sarah came home, I casually asked if everything was okay at work. She smiled too quickly. "Everything's fine." It wasn't. Over the next few weeks, she became distant. She canceled family outings. She stopped laughing. Sometimes I caught her crying alone in the garage. Whenever I asked what was wrong, she'd say she was just tired. One Saturday morning, I noticed something unusual. She left the house without telling me where she was going. For the first time in our marriage, I followed her. She drove across town and parked outside an old apartment building. A man in his 60s stepped outside. They hugged. Not like strangers, not like coworkers, like people carrying years of pain. I felt my heart sink. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I saw Sarah crying. The man handed her a thick envelope. She hugged him again. Then she drove home. I spent the entire night imagining the worst. Was she having an affair? Was she planning to leave me? The next morning I confronted her. "Who is he?" She froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." I placed the photograph I'd taken on the table. Silence filled the room. Finally, and she whispered, "I wanted to tell you, but I was afraid." Afraid? Afraid of what? Then she told me a story I'd never expected. Before we met, Sarah had discovered she was adopted. The man I'd seen was her biological father. For years, she'd searched for him. Months earlier, she'd finally found him. But there was one terrible problem. He was dying. The strange phone calls weren't from a secret lover. They were from the hospice nurse, calling whenever his condition became worse. The envelope contained old family photographs, letters, and a handwritten journal explaining why he had given her up as a baby. I felt ashamed. I had allowed suspicion to replace trust, but the story wasn't over. 3 days later, another phone call came. This time, Sarah answered it on speaker. The nurse's voice trembled. "I'm so sorry. He passed away peacefully this morning." Sarah collapsed into tears. We drove to the hospital together. When we arrived, the nurse handed Sarah one final envelope. Inside was a letter. It read, "If you're reading this, then I never found enough courage to tell you in person that leaving you was the greatest regret of my life. I watched from a distance for years. I knew you grew into a kind, loving woman. I wanted to come sooner, but I feared you would hate me. Please forgive me if you can. Live the life I hoped you would have." Neither of us could hold back our tears. On the drive home, Sarah took my hand. "I'm sorry I kept it from you." I squeezed her hand gently. "And I'm sorry I assumed the worst instead of asking how I could help." That painful season changed our marriage forever. Not because of betrayal, but because silence can sometimes hurt as much as lies. If someone you love suddenly changes, don't always assume they're hiding something terrible. Sometimes they're carrying a burden too heavy to explain, and sometimes the strange phone calls aren't the beginning of betrayal. They're the sound of someone quietly saying goodbye to the family they never had. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Every week you'll get fresh stories, valuable insights, and information you won't want to miss. Hit the subscribe button now, and I'll see you in the next video.